20 things that make a 1980s summer. Remember when summer meant scraped knees, cardboard dance floors, and ice-cold drinks from the hose? In today's video, we're diving back into the wild, wonderful world of 1980s summer breaks. The kind of fun that would raise eyebrows today. Get ready to relive the freedom, the chaos, and the unforgettable magic of childhood summers gone by. Showing up unannounced. Back in the summer days of the 1980s, making plans wasn't something you did with a calendar or a smartphone. If you wanted to see your friends, you didn't need to call ahead or text, you just showed up. That was perfectly normal. You'd hop on your bike, feel the wind in your hair, and pedal over to your friend's house without a second thought. No invitation needed. You'd roll right up to the driveway, toss your bike onto the lawn, and hit that doorbell like it was a starter pistol. And if no one answered, you'd check around back, or maybe call their name through the screen door. If they weren't home, no big deal. You'd move on to the next house. But when they were home, that was the start of an epic day. Maybe it turned into a neighborhood-wide water balloon fight, or maybe you just hung out in a treehouse, sipping lemonade and swapping stories. There was something special about that kind of freedom. No schedules, no notifications. Just a spontaneous world of possibility, one doorbell ring at a time. In those days, friendship wasn't planned. It just happened. And somehow, that made it all the more magical. Dangerous playground fun. Back in the summers of the 1980s, playgrounds weren't just fun. They were wild, unpredictable, and honestly, a little dangerous. But that was part of the thrill. The equipment was made of solid steel, not the soft plastic you see today. If you slipped and smacked into it, you felt it. And the ground? Usually just a layer of packed dirt or scorching hot blacktop, not a hint of foam padding in sight. The king of all chaos, though, was the merry-go-round. That spinning metal disc was basically a test of bravery. You and your buddies would run alongside it, pushing as fast as you could, then jump on while it was still moving. It didn't matter if you could barely hang on. Getting flung off into the dirt was half the fun. You'd roll away dizzy, bruised, and laughing like crazy. It was the closest we'd get to being action heroes or stuntmen, like something straight out of a Saturday morning TV show. There were no helmets, no warnings, just the thrill of pushing your limits. It might not have been the safest place, but man, those playgrounds gave us some of the best memories of our childhood summers. Helmet-free bike adventures. Once you made it off the playground in one piece, it was time to grab your bike and hit the road. No helmet, no water, no plan. Just pure summer freedom. In the 1980s, bike rides weren't just a way to get around. They were a rite of passage. You and your friends would set off with no real destination in mind, just a sense of adventure and a whole lot of energy. You'd ride for miles, way farther than your parents probably realized, through neighborhoods, across parks, down dirt paths. You were explorers in your own world. No one wore helmets, and no one thought twice about it. The wind in your face and the sound of your tires on pavement made you feel invincible. And when the sun got too hot and your throat was dry, you didn't stop at a store or carry fancy water bottles. You'd swing by someone's house, turn on the garden hose, and take a cold, refreshing drink straight from the spout. It tasted like metal and chlorine, and it was perfect. Those helmet-free bike rides weren't just about getting from point A to B. They were about freedom, friendship, and the kind of summer fun that doesn't come with instructions. Classic 80s lunches. After a long morning of biking around the neighborhood, dodging traffic, and racing your buddies to the end of the block, hunger hit hard. And where did everyone end up? Your house, of course. That was the unofficial meeting spot, especially around lunchtime. The screen door would slam behind you as the whole gang piled into the kitchen, sweaty and starving. Luckily, Mom had just come back from the store. or so you hoped. You'd fling open the fridge, praying for the essentials: bologna, a loaf of Wonder Bread, that bright yellow mustard, and a crinkly bag of salty potato chips. Sometimes there was even a slice of American cheese if you were really lucky. No one cared about nutrition labels or preservatives. This was the food of champions. You'd slap together those sandwiches, grab a paper plate, and sprawl out on the carpet in front of the TV, maybe catching some Scooby-Doo or The Price is Right. But if the shelves were bare, that just meant Mom was headed back to the store. Again. She knew feeding a pack of hungry kids was part of summer life. Simple, messy, perfect. That's what lunch looked like in the summer of the 1980s. Fishing and DIY bike ramps. Once those bologna sandwiches were gone and the chips were crumbs, it was time for round 2 of summer adventure. You'd grab your bike again and head out, this time to the local fishing hole. Maybe it was a creek behind the park or a pond out past the railroad tracks. You didn't need fancy gear. A cheap rod, a jar of worms, and a pocket full of hope were all it took. Sitting in the shade with your friends, swapping stories, waiting for a tug on the line. It didn't matter if you caught anything. The peace and the laughter were the real prize. But if the fish weren't biting, no problem. That just meant it was time to kick things up a notch. You'd race home, gather some old plywood, a few bricks, maybe even a milk crate or two, and get to work building the biggest, wildest bike ramp you could imagine. No one measured anything. No one checked for stability. You just lined it up and went for it. Was it dangerous? Absolutely. Was it awesome? Every single time. Scraped knees, high fives, and the thrill of mid-air glory. That was the spirit of summer in the 80s. What's one summer memory from the 1980s that you'll never forget? Frogs, fireflies, and nighttime fun. As the sun dipped low and the sky turned pink, your summer adventures didn't slow down. They just shifted gears. You'd stay on your bike until the very last second, racing the daylight, with the hum of tires on pavement and the sound of laughter echoing down the block. The rule was simple: be home when the streetlights came on. But even then, the fun wasn't over. That's when the real magic began. Barefoot and full of curiosity, you'd wander out into the backyard or the field behind your house, flashlight in hand, searching for frogs in the damp grass. And if you were feeling extra mischievous, you'd catch fireflies, glowing little gems of summer, and feed them to the frogs, just to watch them light up for a second from the inside. Strange? Maybe, but unforgettable. Other times, you'd trap a bunch of lightning bugs in a mason jar, poke some holes in the lid, and set it on your nightstand like a living nightlight. Watching them blink softly in the dark was better than any lamp. Of course, when a few escaped into the house, Mom wasn't exactly thrilled. Still, those nights were pure childhood magic: glowing bugs, frog hunts, and the joy of being just wild enough. Creating fun from scratch. In the summer days of the 1980s, boredom wasn't an option. We just made our own fun, no matter what we had or didn't have. Most of us didn't grow up with fancy backyard playsets or store-bought toys that did all the work for us. If we wanted a fort, we didn't ask for one. We built it. Scrap wood, old nails, a few bent hinges, maybe a discarded door. Whatever we could find in a neighbor's garage or the alley behind the house, we used it. It might have been crooked and a little wobbly, but to us, it was a castle, a hideout, a world of our own. And when the summer heat kicked in and we dreamed of a slip and slide, no need to run to the store. A battered tarp, a garden hose, and a squirt of dish soap were all we needed. Sure, it wasn't as smooth. And yeah, the grass burned your arms a bit, but it was hilarious and thrilling all the same. That's just how it was. We didn't wait for fun to show up. We built it with our hands, our imagination, and whatever we could scrounge up. And honestly, that kind of fun stuck with us the longest. Breakdancing and driveway moves. Back in the 1980s, breakdancing wasn't just a trend, it was a full-blown movement. It swept through neighborhoods like wildfire, and suddenly, every kid on the block was a wannabe b-boy or b-girl. We didn't have dance studios or mirrors. What we had was cardboard, big pieces flattened out in the driveway, stolen from behind grocery stores or pulled from the garage. That became our dance floor. We'd blast the boombox and take turns trying to spin, pop, and lock, copying the moves we saw on MTV or learned from older kids down the street. Even if you couldn't bust a real headspin, you'd still give the moonwalk a try or practice the wave with your arms until you looked half decent. It didn't matter if you were good. What mattered was that you tried and that you had fun doing it. And when the heat got too much and your shirt was soaked with sweat, that's when the backyard sprinkler became your best friend. You'd run full speed through the icy spray, laughing, slipping, and screaming like it was the best water park in town. Dancing, laughing, cooling off, it was summer at its absolute best, right there in the driveway. The art of the mixtape. Long before playlists and streaming apps, crafting the perfect summer soundtrack was an art form, and it took serious dedication. If you grew up in the 1980s, you probably spent hours camped out next to the radio with a blank cassette loaded and your finger hovering over the record button. Making a mixtape wasn't just fun, it was a mission. You had to listen closely, waiting for your song to come on. And when it finally did, you had to hit record fast, hoping the DJ didn't ruin it by talking over the intro. If he did, tough luck. You'd sigh, rewind, and wait all over again. No skipping, no second chances. It took patience, timing, and a little bit of luck. Sometimes you'd record straight from the radio, and other times you'd try to tape songs from a friend's boombox or borrow their cassette if they had something you didn't. And when you finally had that tape filled with your favorite tracks, maybe a little Madonna, some Prince, or a bit of Run DMC, it felt like a treasure. That mixtape wasn't just music. It was your summer story, captured in beats and static. And the best part? You made it yourself, one song at a time. DIY bedroom decor. Back in the 80s, your bedroom wasn't just where you slept. It was your personal headquarters, your creative studio, and your escape from the world. And decorating it? That was a full-time hobby. While you were waiting for your favorite song to come on the radio, tape recorder at the ready, you'd grab a stack of magazines, some scissors, and go to town. You'd flip through pages of Tiger Beat, 17, or Rolling Stone, hunting for that perfect poster of your favorite band, heartthrob actor, or neon-colored ad. Then you'd carefully cut it out and slap it right on the wall. No frames, no matching themes, just whatever looked cool. The goal? Cover every inch. Movie posters, album covers, doodles, stickers, even shoelaces from old sneakers. You'd find a way to make it part of the vibe. Your walls became a scrapbook of who you were and what you loved. Every poster had a story. Every corner was packed with personality. It didn't need to match. It just needed to be you. And when the lights went out, you'd fall asleep surrounded by the stars of your own teenage universe. In the 1980s, your bedroom truly was your canvas. Summer jobs for ice cream money. In the 1980s, summer wasn't just about fun and games. It was also the perfect time to hustle for a few bucks. And for most kids, that meant knocking on doors and offering to mow lawns, wash cars, or walk dogs. You didn't need a resume or experience. Just a smile, a little ambition, and maybe a half-decent push mower. Nobody expected perfection. The lines in the grass might not have been straight, and a few suds might have dried on the car, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that you showed up and gave it your best. You weren't looking to get rich. You just needed enough to grab a Choco Taco from the ice cream truck, pick up a new cassette tape, or finally get that G.I. Joe figure you'd been eyeing at the store. Sometimes you worked with a buddy and split the cash. Other times, you took the whole $5 and felt like a millionaire. And when you pocketed that first crumpled bill, the pride was real. These jobs weren't glamorous, but they taught us responsibility, and they fueled our summer fun. One lawn, one car, $1 at a time. We were learning how to earn and enjoy. What was your go-to snack or treat during those hot summer days? Grandma time and soap operas. One of the sweetest parts of summer in the 1980s was spending extra time with Grandma. Whether your parents were at work or you just wanted to escape the chaos of home, her place was a second home. And let's be honest, Grandma knew how to spoil you. Her kitchen was always warm, and there was always something baking. Cookies, cobblers, casseroles. You never left hungry. But there was one catch. If you were hanging out during the day, you were definitely sitting through a few episodes of her favorite soap operas. The Young and the Restless, Days of Our Lives, or General Hospital. Those shows were sacred, and you didn't dare talk over them. At first, you'd groan, wondering how anyone could sit through all that drama. But after a while, you got curious. Who was cheating on who? Why did that guy come back from the dead again? You'd sit there with a plate of cookies, eyes glued to the screen, half laughing, half invested. It was a fair trade. Delicious food, a little drama, and that comforting feeling of being completely loved. Spending time with Grandma wasn't just a summer routine. It was a tradition, full of heart, stories, and a few unexpected cliffhangers. Family vacations and Jazzercise. Summers in the 1980s always came with one big promise: family vacation. It didn't have to be anything fancy. Sometimes it was a week at the beach, but more often than not, it was a trip to a nearby state park with a packed cooler, a tent, and enough bug spray to choke a horse. You'd sleep in sleeping bags, roast marshmallows over the fire, and fight over who got to sit by the window during the drive. It was simple, and it was perfect. But before you ever hit the road, there was the pre-vacation ritual happening right in the living room. Mom doing Jazzercise, decked out in neon leggings, a sweatband, and that unmistakable 80s energy. She'd be in front of the TV, following along with those high-energy workout tapes. And Grapevine, now kick. The music was loud, the moves were bouncy, and she meant business. Meanwhile, you were the complete opposite of active, kicked back on the couch, watching cartoons, eating Lucky Charms straight from the box, marshmallows first. That mix of anticipation, chaos, and charm was what made summer vacation season feel so real. Jazzercise, cereal, and road trips. Just another day in an unforgettable 80s summer. Road trips and rest stops. When vacation day finally rolled around, it was all systems go. You'd pile into the family station wagon, windows down, bags stacked to the ceiling, siblings squished together in the back seat, already arguing about who got the window seat. Forget fast food. Your parents weren't about to spend a dime at a drive-thru. Lunch was packed, and it came straight out of the cooler in the trunk. Usually, it was homemade sandwiches wrapped in foil, a few juice boxes rolling around, and maybe some chips if you were lucky. You'd eat sitting on the tailgate at a rest stop off the highway, surrounded by other road-weary families doing the exact same thing. But the real kicker? The sightseeing stop. Your parents always had one planned. Maybe it was a battlefield, an old fort, or some obscure roadside attraction with a faded sign that said, "Historic." You'd groan, roll your eyes, and drag your feet through another tour full of facts you swore you didn't care about. But deep down, you kinda did care. You remembered those places, those weird facts, and how it felt to learn something new with your family beside you. That's what summer vacations were all about. Packed cars, packed lunches, and memories that stuck with you longer than you expected. Summer reading and Pizza Hut. When you weren't off on a family road trip, you were back in the neighborhood hoping your friends hadn't skipped town. But if they were gone, no problem. You had a backup plan. The local library. In the 80s, libraries weren't just quiet places with dusty books. They were your ticket to free food and sweet victory, thanks to the legendary summer reading programs. You'd sign up, get your little booklet, and start checking off titles. Each book you read earned you a stamp or sticker, and once you filled that card, jackpot. You'd march into Pizza Hut, hand over that prize like it was solid gold, and they'd bring out a hot, cheesy, personal pan pizza just for you. No sharing. No splitting slices with your siblings. This one was yours, earned with every page you turned. And let's not forget the red plastic cups, the smell of that deep dish crust, and maybe even a Pac-Man arcade machine humming in the background. Sure, you might have skimmed a few chapters here and there, but it didn't matter. You were reading, you were winning, and you were eating like royalty. That pizza wasn't just a prize. It was the taste of summer accomplishment. Did you have a favorite hangout spot, like the roller rink, video store, or mall? Sleepovers and skating rinks. Weekends in the 1980s had a rhythm all their own, and for kids, that meant one thing: sleepovers. One week, your sleeping bag was rolled out in your best friend's living room, and the next, they were at your place, giggling until midnight and loading up on soda and microwave popcorn. No one cared about bedtime. The real goal was to make it through the night without crashing, and maybe prank call someone along the way. But the real excitement started when you'd talk your mom into taking you to the roller rink. Just walking through those doors felt electric. The disco lights spun above the floor, the scent of nachos and greasy pizza filled the air, and the DJ was always spinning the biggest hits. Madonna, Michael Jackson, maybe even a little Bon Jovi if you were lucky. It wasn't just about skating. It was where you showed off your coolest moves, tried to impress your crush, and hung out with your entire social circle, all while trying not to wipe out in the middle of a slow skate. Sleepovers gave us freedom. The skating rink gave us style. And together, they made weekends in the 80s unforgettable. Bowling alleys, malls, and crushes. In the summer of the 1980s, weekends were a non-stop cycle of cool hangouts, roller rinks, bowling alleys, and shopping malls. Each one had its own vibe, but all three had one thing in common: that electric buzz of possibility. Whether you were showing off a perfect strike at the bowling alley, hanging out by the food court at the mall, or circling the roller rink for the third time in a row, everyone had their eyes peeled for that special someone. You knew your crush would be there, maybe skating with friends or browsing cassette tapes at the record store. And if you were feeling bold, you might actually say something, even if it was just a "hey" followed by an awkward laugh. Those little moments meant everything back then. But when the DJ called for a slow song at the roller rink, that's when things got real. The lights would dim, the music would soften, and nerves would spike. Most of us suddenly remembered we needed to get water or check our laces. The rink would empty out except for the brave few, hand in hand, skating in slow motion under the disco ball. It was innocent, exciting, and unforgettable. That was summer love, 80s style. The magic of video stores. In the 1980s, Friday nights meant one thing: heading to the video store. It was a ritual, a thrill, and a family outing all wrapped into one. You'd walk through those glass doors, greeted by that familiar scent of popcorn, plastic cases, and worn carpet. The walls were lined with shelves stacked with VHS tapes, each one promising a night of action, laughs, or scares. You hoped to snag the latest blockbuster, the one everyone at school was talking about. But if all the copies were already rented, and let's be honest, they usually were, you'd wander the aisles for what felt like forever, judging every movie by its cover art. No streaming, no previews, just instinct and maybe a little advice from the clerk behind the counter. Sometimes you struck gold, sometimes you ended up with a total dud, but somehow, even the bad picks were part of the fun. If you had friends sleeping over, you always made a beeline for the horror section. Titles like Friday the 13th or Poltergeist were guaranteed to keep you up all night. Blankets over your head, snacks by your side, and hearts pounding. That's what made video store nights pure magic. Puffy paint and mud pies. Summer in the 80s was a time for creativity. The messier, the better. There were no rules, no YouTube tutorials, and definitely no Pinterest boards. Just pure imagination and whatever supplies you could get your hands on. Puffy paint was huge. It came in every neon color imaginable, and kids, especially girls, went wild decorating jean jackets, backpacks, and even their sneakers. Hearts, names, zigzags. You'd layer it on thick and wait days for it to dry. And once it did, you strutted around like you were wearing a designer original. Not to be left out, the boys were busy customizing their denim too, except instead of glitter, they stitched on rock band patches with crooked little seams. Iron Maiden, Van Halen, maybe even a skull or two. It wasn't perfect, but it was cool. And for the younger crowd, or just the wildly imaginative, there were mud pies. You'd dig up the backyard, mix dirt and hose water into a glorious mess, and pretend you were a world-class chef, sprinkled with leaves and topped with pebbles. It was disgusting, and we loved it. Silly? Absolutely. But that was the beauty of it. Summer was for trying things, making messes, and doing whatever weird idea popped into your head. The end of summer. Just like that, the long, carefree days of summer started winding down. The nights got a little cooler, the fireflies came out earlier, and the sound of crickets seemed a little more final. You could feel it coming, even if you didn't want to admit it. School was just around the corner. Nobody was exactly excited about going back. Trading in bike rides and backyard adventures for early mornings and homework? No thanks. But there was one silver lining. Back-to-school shopping. It was the unofficial last event of the summer, and it actually made the transition a little sweeter. You'd head to the mall or department store with your parents and pick out fresh notebooks, perfectly sharpened pencils, and a brand new Trapper Keeper. You tried on shoes, ones that felt a little too stiff, and maybe got a cool graphic tee or pair of jeans you couldn't wait to show off. It was a fresh start, even if it meant the end of freedom. You'd line up your new supplies on your desk that night, half dreading, half excited. And just like that, the magic of summer faded into memory until next year. But those memories, they stayed with you year after year. What made the 1980s the golden age of toys? From cuddly companions to high-tech heroes, this decade unleashed some of the most iconic, game-changing toys of all time. Stick around as we dive into the wild, colorful world of 1980s toys. You might just spot the one that ruled your childhood. Trivial Pursuit. Let's take a trip back to 1981, a year when a board game about knowing stuff suddenly became the coolest thing on the coffee table. That game? Trivial Pursuit. It actually got its start a couple years earlier, in 1979, when two Canadian journalists, Chris Haney, a photo editor at the Gazette, and Scott Abbott, a sports editor at the Canadian Press, dreamed it up during a friendly hangout. They wanted something fun and challenging that would put people's general knowledge to the test. And they nailed it. Trivial Pursuit is simple in concept, but brilliant in execution. Players move their pieces around a circular board, landing on colored spaces that each represent a different category. Think history, science and nature, arts and literature, sports, entertainment and geography. Answer a question right, you earn a colored wedge. Collect all 6, one from each category, and head to the center for a final challenge. Get it right, and you win. But what really made Trivial Pursuit stand out was how it brought people together. Families, friends, even co-workers gathered to play. Over the years, it's evolved into dozens of themed editions, Star Wars, 80s nostalgia, even junior versions for kids. With translations in over 20 languages, it became a global sensation. And today, it's still a classic go-to for game night. Cabbage Patch Kids. In 1982, a new kind of doll took the toy world by storm, and no one saw it coming. Cabbage Patch Kids, with their soft cloth bodies, rounded plastic faces, and chubby cheeks, became more than just toys. They became a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Originally created by Coleco Industries, each doll came with its own unique name, birth certificate, and set of adoption papers, making every child feel like they were adopting a real baby, not just buying a toy. These weren't your typical dolls. No two were exactly alike, and that only added to the obsession. The demand was so overwhelming that it sparked chaos during the holiday season. Parents were fighting in stores, climbing over each other, just to grab one off the shelves, especially during Black Friday. The frenzy was so intense that Coleco actually had to pause advertising for a while because they simply couldn't produce enough dolls to meet the skyrocketing demand. For 3 straight years, Cabbage Patch Kids smashed toy industry sales records. They were the must-have item of the 1980s. Ironically, despite the wild success, Coleco eventually went bankrupt, and the dolls changed hands several times, eventually landing with Wicked Cool Toys, who still produces them today. Power Wheels. If you were a kid in the 80s or 90s, having your own set of wheels wasn't just a dream. It was a Power Wheels reality. These battery-powered ride-on cars gave children under 7 the thrill of driving, all from the safety of the driveway or backyard. The story begins in 1984, when Kransco, a San Francisco-based toy company, bought Pines of America, an early maker of battery-powered kids' vehicles. Just 2 years later, the line got a new name and a bold identity: Power Wheels. What made Power Wheels such a hit wasn't just that they moved, it was how real they felt. These weren't basic plastic scooters. They looked like mini versions of real-life cars and trucks. Some models even came with features like working FM radios, CB radios, opening doors and hoods, and both forward and reverse gears. Kids could cruise like grown-ups, just in slow motion. By 1990, Power Wheels had hit their stride, with sales topping 1 million units per year, and they haven't slowed down since. Over the decades, the brand has kept up with trends, offering new models based on popular vehicles and characters. Today, they're still a staple for little ones who dream of hitting the road. Rainbow Brite. In 1983, Hallmark Cards stepped into the world of children's entertainment with a bold splash of color and kindness, introducing Rainbow Brite. More than just a character, she became the heart of a magical media franchise built around themes of friendship, courage, and, of course, rainbows. A year later, in 1984, Rainbow Brite burst onto television screens with her own animated series. That same year, Hallmark teamed up with Mattel to turn the colorful world into a toy line. And just like that, Rainbow Brite became a household name. The story centered around Rainbow Brite, a cheerful girl who brought color to a once dark world with the help of her friends, the Color Kids, and her trusty steed, Starlight. Kids everywhere were drawn to the bright visuals, positive messages, and lovable cast of characters. The dolls, which were released alongside the show, were a big hit. They came dressed in bold outfits, complete with yarn hair, sparkly accessories, and a whole rainbow of collectible pals. In 1985, the franchise even made it to the big screen with Rainbow Brite and the Star Stealer, a full-length animated film. Though attempts to revive Rainbow Brite in 2014 and 2015 didn't quite capture the original magic, for many kids of the 1980s, she was the shining symbol of light, color, and joy. Teddy Ruxpin. Introduced in 1985, Teddy was no ordinary teddy bear. He had moving eyes and a mouth that synced with the words on cassette tapes played from a built-in tape deck in his back. When you popped in a tape, Teddy would read aloud, captivating kids with his gentle voice and expressive face. It was like having your own animated bedtime storyteller right in your lap. Teddy Ruxpin was created by Worlds of Wonder and quickly became a sensation. In fact, he was the best-selling toy in both 1985 and 1986. At the height of his fame, Teddy even landed his own animated television series, taking his magical adventures from the toy shelf to Saturday morning screens. He wasn't just a bear, he was an experience. Though the original cassette-based model is now a nostalgic memory, Teddy has been brought back in modern forms over the years. Today, he's produced by Wicked Cool Toys and has been updated with more modern tech. No more cassette deck. But the heart of Teddy Ruxpin remains the same. Stories, imagination, and that familiar comforting voice that made him one of the most magical toys of the 1980s. Garbage Pail Kids. In 1985, a strange, hilarious, and downright gross set of trading cards hit the scene, and kids couldn't get enough. Garbage Pail Kids, created by the Topps Company, were designed as a rebellious parody of the super popular Cabbage Patch Kids dolls that were taking the toy world by storm. While little girls were busy adopting sweet-faced dolls, boys were showing off their Garbage Pail Kids, grotesque, weird, and brilliantly outrageous. Each card featured a wild cartoon character with some kind of bizarre, exaggerated trait or pun-filled name, like Atom Bomb, with his head exploding, or Leaky Lindsay, with a waterfall of snot. They were part sticker, part collector's item, and completely irresistible for kids looking to push the envelope a little. They didn't just mock the cuteness of Cabbage Patch Kids, they turned it upside down and made it grotesquely hilarious. But the parody hit a little too close to home. The makers of Cabbage Patch Kids sued Topps for trademark infringement, forcing the company to tweak the design of the characters and logo. By 1988, the fad had faded, and the original series came to a halt. Still, Garbage Pail Kids have never truly gone away. Since 2000, there have been several reboots and new card series, but none have quite recaptured that 80s lightning in a bottle. Micro Machines. In 1987, toy shelves got a whole lot smaller, but way more exciting, thanks to Micro Machines. Released by Galoob, these tiny toy vehicles packed big fun into just a few inches of plastic. Cars, trucks, planes, boats, you name it, they had it. All designed with incredible detail despite their miniature size. And while the toys were cool on their own, it was the lightning-fast, unforgettable commercials that really turned them into a hit. Enter John Machida Jr., the man who could speak faster than anyone else on the planet. Listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as the fastest talker, Machida became the face and rapid-fire voice of Micro Machines. His mile-a-minute delivery made those ads iconic, and kids everywhere would race to repeat the line. Remember, if it doesn't say Micro Machines, it's not the real thing. That slogan became burned into the memory of a generation. Micro Machines stood out because they were portable, collectible, and surprisingly durable. Kids could carry an entire fleet in their backpack or set up elaborate cityscapes in the living room. Over the years, the brand evolved and changed hands. Galoob was eventually acquired by Hasbro, but Micro Machines never disappeared completely. GoBots. Before the Transformers became the reigning champions of the robot toy world, there was another mechanical crew revving up kids' imaginations, GoBots. Released by Tonka in 1983, GoBots were part of the early wave of transforming robot toys that took the 80s by storm. They hit shelves a year before Transformers, and for a brief moment had the spotlight all to themselves. GoBots featured robots that could transform into vehicles, planes, and other machines, just like their soon-to-be rival. The toy line was split between two factions, the heroic Guardians and the evil Renegades, locked in an ongoing battle for control. To boost their presence, Hanna-Barbera rolled out an animated series, Challenge of the GoBots, which ran for 65 episodes between 1984 and 1985. The show introduced fans to characters like Leader One and Psykill and gave the toys some much-needed backstory. Initially, the GoBots sold well, but once Hasbro launched Transformers in 1984, with more complex designs, deeper lore, and a bigger marketing push, GoBots started losing ground fast. By 1987, the line faded out. In 1991, Hasbro acquired Tonka, and with it, the rights to GoBots. Transformers. In the 1980s, one toy line didn't just capture kids' attention, it completely transformed it. Transformers were unlike anything else on the shelves. These were action figures that could change shape. One moment they were cool cars, jets, or tanks, and the next, they were fully formed robots ready for battle. It was like getting two toys in one, and that clever design became the foundation of a pop culture phenomenon. Originally created in Japan by Takara Tomy, the toy line made its way to the US thanks to Hasbro, who gave it a bold new identity and story, with catchy slogans like "More than meets the eye" and "Robots in disguise." Transformers quickly became more than just a toy. They were a full-blown franchise. The characters were divided into two main factions, the heroic Autobots, led by the noble Optimus Prime, and the villainous Decepticons, commanded by the ruthless Megatron. Their battle for control over their home planet, Cybertron, spilled onto Earth and into kids' imaginations. The success of the toys led to an animated TV series, comic books, and even an animated movie in 1986 that left a lasting mark on an entire generation. Fast forward to the 2000s, and Transformers made a massive comeback with blockbuster live-action films and new toy lines. But no matter how advanced they've become, for many fans, the heart and soul of Transformers will always belong to the 80s. Did you ever fight a sibling or friend over a toy like Cabbage Patch Kids or Transformers? Tell us your story. Glowworm. Back in 1982, bedtime for little ones got a whole lot cozier thanks to a snuggly little toy called Glowworm. Made by Hasbro's Playskool division, Glowworm wasn't just another plush doll, it had a magical twist. When kids gave it a gentle squeeze, its soft plastic face would light up with a warm, comforting glow. And for many young children, that soft light made bedtime feel a little less scary and a lot more comforting. The design was simple, but genius. Shaped like a cute worm in a cozy sleeper outfit, Glowworm quickly became a nighttime companion for kids everywhere. It wasn't just a toy, it was a source of comfort during the dark, quiet hours of the night. Parents loved it too, since it helped soothe fussy kids without the need for bright lights or extra attention. Thanks to its success, Hasbro expanded the Glowworm line beyond just the basic glowing plush. Soon, there were musical glowworms that played lullabies, as well as a whole collection of bedtime storybooks, sing-along videos, and other merchandise featuring the lovable character. My Little Pony. In 1982, Hasbro introduced a magical world filled with color, imagination, and charm. My Little Pony. These adorable little ponies weren't just toys, they were little characters full of personality and sparkle. But before the My Little Pony line trotted onto toy shelves, there was a lesser-known predecessor called My Pretty Pony, released in 1981. It was bigger, more realistic, and not quite the hit Hasbro was hoping for. So, they went back to the drawing board and came up with something smaller, cuter, and far more enchanting. What set My Little Pony apart were the bright pastel-colored bodies, the silky brushable manes and tails, and the signature cutie marks on their flanks, unique symbols that hinted at each pony's special trait or story. They weren't just fun to play with, they sparked creativity and storytelling in young kids, especially little girls. Thanks to its early success, My Little Pony quickly grew into more than just a toy line. There were animated specials, TV shows, movies, books, clothes, you name it. Over the years, the franchise reinvented itself through different generations, each with a fresh look and new characters to connect with a new audience. But through every version, the heart of My Little Pony has remained the same: friendship, magic, and fun. Which 1980s toy was your absolute favorite growing up? And do you still have it? Care Bears. Before they became beloved stuffed animals, the Care Bears actually started out in a very different place, on greeting cards. Back in 1981, the company American Greetings designed these sweet, colorful bears as part of a new line of cards meant to spread love, joy, and caring. But it didn't take long for the characters to leap off the paper and into the arms of children everywhere. By September of 1982, Parker Brothers introduced them as plush toys, and just a few months later, in the spring of 1983, Kenner took over and launched them into full-blown toy stardom. Each bear had its own color and personality, marked by a unique symbol called a belly badge right on its tummy. Whether it was Tenderheart Bear, Cheer Bear, or Grumpy Bear, each one stood for a specific emotion or value, making it easy for kids to connect with the one that matched their own feelings. Care Bears weren't just toys, they were part of a movement. They starred in animated TV specials, movies, books, and even video games. From 1983 to 1987, over 40 million Care Bears were sold. And even decades later, they're still around, thanks to multiple reboots and generations. Many moms today proudly pass down their childhood Care Bears to their daughters, continuing the caring tradition across generations. Masters of the Universe. Back in the early 80s, when kids were obsessed with heroes, villains, and epic battles, Masters of the Universe hit toy shelves and changed the action figure game forever. Created by Mattel in 1981 and launched in 1982, this sword and sorcery-inspired toy line was bold, imaginative, and packed with muscle. While the exact origin story is a bit murky, since several designers have claimed credit, it's clear that Mattel struck gold. Unlike the smaller Star Wars figures from Kenner, which stood about 3 3/4 inches tall, Mattel made a bold move with bulkier 5.5-inch characters. They were bigger, buffer, and ready for battle. At the center of it all were two unforgettable figures: He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe, and Skeletor, his evil arch-nemesis. But they didn't come alone. A whole universe of heroes, villains, monsters, and machines filled out the lineup. What made this toy line even more unique? Each figure came with its own mini comic book, adding layers of backstory and sparking kids' imaginations. Soon enough, DC Comics joined in, followed by the famous animated TV series and even a live-action movie in the late 80s. Although there was a reboot in the early 2000s, it never quite recaptured the lightning-in-a-bottle magic of the original 1980s run. Still, Masters of the Universe remains one of the most iconic toy lines of that decade. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In 1984, a quirky comic book launched a phenomenon that would soon sweep across the globe: Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What started as a small black-and-white comic created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird turned into one of the biggest kids' franchises of the 80s and beyond. The story? 4 ordinary turtles transformed by a mysterious ooze into walking, talking, pizza-loving ninjas. Under the guidance of their wise rat sensei, Splinter, they trained in the art of ninjutsu and took on names inspired by famous Renaissance artists: Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo. By 1988, Playmates Toys brought the turtles to life in action figure form, and that's when the real craze began. Fueled by a wildly popular cartoon series, the toys flew off shelves, and soon the turtles were everywhere, on t-shirts, backpacks, lunchboxes, bedsheets, and even underwear. Kids couldn't get enough of them, and the turtle power movement only got stronger going into the early 90s. Although their popularity dipped around 1996, the Turtles made a comeback in 2003 with a rebooted TV series, and again in 2014 with a live-action movie. Over the years, they've continued to evolve with each new generation, but the heart of the franchise remains the same: action, humor, teamwork, and a whole lot of pizza. Nintendo Entertainment System, NES. In the mid-1980s, video games were on life support. After the crash of 1983, many believed home gaming was just a passing fad. But then, in came Nintendo, and everything changed. Originally released in Japan in 1983 as the Famicom, short for Family Computer, Nintendo's 8-bit gaming console quickly became a sensation overseas. By the end of 1984, it was the best-selling console in Japan. In 1985, Nintendo set its sights on the American market, rebranding the system as the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES. The company smartly launched it in test markets, starting in New York City that October. By 1986, the system was released nationwide with 17 games, including 2 that would define a generation: Super Mario Bros. And Duck Hunt. What made the NES revolutionary wasn't just the games, but how it revived a nearly dead industry. With tighter quality control, engaging gameplay, and an iconic controller design, Nintendo redefined what home gaming could be. Within just a few years, kids everywhere were blowing into cartridges, racing home after school, and begging for extra playtime. Game Boy. In 1989, Nintendo once again changed the game, literally, with the launch of the Game Boy. Released first in Japan in April and then in North America that July, this little gray brick of a console would go on to become one of the most iconic handheld systems of all time. While Europe had to wait over a year to get their hands on it, the Game Boy quickly took the world by storm. At first glance, it wasn't much to look at. The screen was a dull green dot matrix, and there was no color or backlight like some of its flashier competitors. But what it lacked in visual flair, it more than made up for in battery life, durability, and, most importantly, gameplay. Titles like Tetris, Super Mario Land, and Pokémon helped define a generation of gaming, one pocket-sized cartridge at a time. While other companies tried to enter the handheld market with better graphics and color screens, none could match the magic of the Game Boy. Its simplicity, paired with Nintendo's unbeatable library of games, kept it selling strong well into the 1990s. In fact, the Game Boy didn't just survive the decade, it defined it. From long car rides to lazy weekends at home, the Game Boy was always right there in your hands. It wasn't just a handheld console, it was a piece of your childhood. Stompers. Back in 1980, toy shelves got a jolt of rugged excitement with the arrival of Stompers, tiny but mighty battery-powered 4x4 vehicles that captured the imagination of kids across America. Created by W. Eddie Goldfarb and sold by Shaper Toys, these little trucks packed big fun into a small package. Each one ran on a single AA battery and could roll across all kinds of terrain, from carpet to dirt to backyard trails. Over in the UK, they were sold as Trekkers by Corgi Toys, but the thrill was exactly the same. The original lineup featured some classic American rides: the Chevy K10 Scottsdale, Chevy Blazer, Dodge Warlock, Ford Bronco, and Jeep Honcho. These weren't just toy cars, they were mini off-road machines. As the craze grew, more vehicle models were added, along with stunt sets and accessories. Foam tires made for better traction, and later versions even came with 2-speed settings and a neutral gear, so kids could play with them manually if the battery died. Their popularity wasn't just about the toys themselves, it was also about timing. The early 80s saw a massive rise in the monster truck scene, especially with the emergence of Bigfoot. Stompers gave kids a way to bring that high-octane, off-road energy into their own hands. For a while, nothing was cooler than a stomper climbing over the couch cushions like it was crushing cars in an arena. Pound puppies. In 1984, a new kind of cuddly companion hit the toy scene, pound puppies. Created by Mike Bowling and first sold by Irwin Toys in Toronto, these plush pups quickly captured the hearts of children everywhere. What made them so special? Each pound puppy came with its own adoption certificate, giving kids the joy of rescuing a dog and giving it a forever home. That emotional connection was a big part of the magic. Soon after their Canadian debut, the toy line was picked up by Tonka and brought to the US, where it exploded in popularity. By 1985, a TV special had aired, and the following year, an animated series launched, turning these floppy-eared pups into full-blown stars. The franchise kept growing, with a full-length movie released in 1988 and tons of merchandise flooding store shelves. Everything from little golden books and coloring books to t-shirts and school folders. Fast food chains got in on the action too. In 1987, both Hardee's and Pizza Hut offered mini pound puppies with kids' meals, making them even more accessible and collectible. The original line stayed strong through the 90s before being discontinued in 2002. Though they were reintroduced in 2014, nothing quite matched the craze of the 1980s. Koosh Ball. In 1987, a new kind of toy hit the scene. Simple, strange, and seriously fun. It was called the Koosh Ball, and it didn't look like any toy kids had seen before. Invented and patented by Scott H. Stillinger, the Koosh Ball was made up of roughly 2,000 soft rubber filaments that radiated from a flexible core. The result? A squishy, colorful ball that was easy to catch, hard to put down, and oddly satisfying to squeeze and toss. The Koosh Ball wasn't just designed for fun, it had a purpose. Stillinger actually came up with the idea while trying to teach his kids how to catch. Unlike hard rubber or plastic balls that could sting or bounce away, Koosh balls were gentle, slow-moving, and perfect for little hands. They quickly caught on, especially because they came in every color imaginable. Kids, teens, even adults loved the sensory feel and playful bounce. As the popularity grew, the Koosh brand expanded into keychains, yo-yos, and even sporty sets like Koosh Baseball and Koosh Tennis. Originally made by Odds On Products, Inc., the toy was later picked up by Hasbro, where it continued to thrive. The Koosh Ball didn't need batteries, flashing lights, or sound effects to be a hit. All it took was a handful of soft rubber strings, and suddenly you had a toy sensation. What was the very first toy you remember begging your parents for in the 80s? Those summers may be long gone, but the memories still shine bright. What were your favorite moments from the 1980s? Share them in the comments. We'd love to hear your stories. And as always, thanks for watching and taking this trip down memory lane with us.